Welcome to the final module in the Community Team Preparation Training. In this module, we will discuss what to expect on your serve trip. We will cover the big 3 B attitudes: culture shock, transformation, and finally, conflict resolution. Let's start with the big 3. On your serve trip, you may be asked to do things you wouldn't normally do at home or see some things that may surprise you. Approaching things in a positive way can make all the difference. Focus on being appreciative, being a humble servant, and being a blessing. Nothing makes a more positive impression for Christ than people who are agreeable and cheerful and choose not to complain. People who say thank you, assume positive intent, and genuinely wish others well are imitating the life and ministry of Jesus. Being appreciative and noticing others is also important. Philippians 2:14 and 15 says, "Do everything without grumbling and arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky." Let's quickly explore the different types of complaining and how they might manifest while on a serve trip. Blatant complaining is the most obvious. This is a complaint that is overt and undisguised. It could be something as simple as, "It is unbearably hot without air conditioning. I don't know how these people survive." Sarcastic complaining may be disguised under the pretense of sarcasm. Something like, "Wow, I guess no one in this country ever complains about being cold," or, "I sure am glad it's only 98 degrees today." You see, there's a complaint of being hot in those statements without coming right out and saying it. The tone of your statements is what matters, and the underlying message is still clear. Finally, nonverbal complaints. These types of complaints are often initiated as an attempt to avoid complaining, but they are still obvious pronouncements about a situation. In our scenario, this might be flagrant fanning of oneself. Other nonverbal communication can include eye rolls, audible sighs, or crossed arms. Be aware of what you might unintentionally be saying without speaking a word. The second item on our list of 3 attitudes is a tall order. Be a humble servant. On serve trips, it's important to remember that we are guests invited to serve alongside the community. As Colossians 3:23-24 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord." Many of us go on serve trips because we are doers. We see a problem, have great ideas, and want to fix it. However good that intention is, we must remember that being called to serve on this trip requires things of us beyond buying a plane ticket and attending training. It requires more of us, spiritually and emotionally, to take on roles and postures we aren't always used to assuming. Sometimes our good intentions can take us down the wrong path. If the answers were simple, chances are the problem would already be solved. There is an old business adage usually given as a piece of advice to new managers. Don't change anything in the first 3 months. It's sound advice. You can't possibly know the players in the company culture until you've worked within it for a while. The same is true for community development. Key leaders in communities where we partner have a better chance of leading lasting, sustainable change because they understand the needs, the resources, and the culture better than we do. Listen to your leaders. Listen to those you are serving, and listen for God. Listen without assuming that you know a better way. Try to be fat, faithful, available, and teachable. Be faithful in answering the call to serve with joy. Be available to listen and serve whenever needed. And be teachable when asked to do something new or in a new way. Our third attitude is be a blessing. Hebrews 13:2 tells us, "Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it." There are so many opportunities to be a blessing when you are on a serve trip. You can be a part of someone's story, working alongside, developing relationships. Just being there and making a positive impact in their space enables you to now become a part of their story. Prioritize relationships. Blessing someone is often not about the task or physical item, but by taking the time to just be present. And lastly, allow others to bless you. Many times we get so caught up in serving others and doing the work that we forget that they may want to serve us as well. If someone asks to help you, let them. This is their way of expressing appreciation, and it is more important than getting the task done quickly. Now that we've covered the big three, let's move on to culture shock. No matter how prepared you think you are, expect to experience some sort of culture shock. Your reaction may vary depending on a few factors, such as length of stay, tolerance for uncertainty, degree of difference between home and host culture, and expectations. Culture shock is normal, and everyone experiences it in some way. Not only are you learning about yourself, but you are also allowing yourself to become accustomed to this different environment. Some will go through it quickly with low levels of stress, while others can find it more difficult to adjust. Luckily, all members of the team have access to a valuable toolkit that will help reduce any negative emotional impact when on your serve trip. Among others, here are just a few of the tools to help with culture shock. While on the trip, participate in the daily debrief. You may discover that others are experiencing similar feelings and learn how they may be dealing with their own version of culture shock. Be sure that you are not just listening, but you are authentically sharing. You might be surprised how many others feel the same way you do. If you are not comfortable bringing something up during debrief, you can ask to have a one-on-one with your team leader. Prayer and journal time can also help you process your feelings. God is always listening and wants to guide us through difficult situations. It is not possible to bother God. God wants to hear our prayers. Next, let's discuss transformation. There are 4 basic phases of transformation. Most people will experience them in this order. Some may experience all phases and others may not. We're sharing these timelines and generalities, however, your experience may vary slightly. During the honeymoon phase, you're feeling euphoric. You're excited, stimulated, and in awe of your experiences. This phase generally happens anytime after making a commitment to the trip and for the first few days of the trip and country. The second phase is distress. The experience is no longer new. You have been separated from your familiar support system for several days, and you may be feeling alone and overwhelmed. This tends to be when culture shock has set in. Our third phase is emergence. You start to feel more comfortable as you rise out of the cloud of distress. You're beginning to feel like yourself again and appreciate where you are. Typically, this is when the new is now familiar. During the fourth and final embracing phase, you see everything in a new yet realistic light. This is a gift from God, and you are ready to apply what you've learned from your experience to the newly transformed you. Listen to Fonda as she talks through her moment of transformation.
If a person has any kind of nudging at all, don't ignore it. Be willing to take a leap of faith. And I guarantee, I don't know that people will have the same experience as I did, and obviously people are going to experience it in different ways. But I guarantee that something will happen, a heart thing will happen if you partake in an international serve trip.
Finally, let's discuss conflict resolution. To either avoid conflict or come to swift resolution, it's important to understand 3 key elements. There are some conditional situations that may lead to a conflict, including but not limited to your stress levels, encountering different beliefs, and less control of your daily activities. These are all things you're likely to encounter when on a serve trip. Here are some strategies that we have found useful in conflict situations. First, embrace a culture of peace and the biblical principles of peacemaking. Second, try to assume everyone has correct motives, giving those around you the benefit of the doubt. Third, address issues quickly, graciously, humbly, and face to face, including only those involved in the conflict. And finally, strive to protect group unity. When we remember Christ's grace and forgiveness towards us, we can freely and humbly forgive others.
Congratulations, you have completed all 4 modules. Way to go. Don't forget to get credit for finishing all of the hard work you just did. To get credit, be sure to follow the link in the description and take the short quiz.